So I'll give you a couple minutes kind of who we are at LDV Capital and the summit that Matt was very kind to mention. And then we'll talk about trends, investment trends and opportunities from content tools to digital beings and the metaverse. And this actually relates to a research report we just published that's downloadable for free. So a little bit of background, about a dozen slides or so. We're LDV Capital. We're the only fund with a thesis of investing in people building businesses powered by visual tech. So this fantastic, brilliant audience. In 2012, I came up with this thesis and this fund, and everybody said it was cute, niche, and science fiction. And I'm sure many of you remember 10, 15, and 20 years ago, that to be the case. But since then, there's been tremendous amount of exits. It's impacting all industries and sectors. It's a core layer in the tech stack, and it's revolutionizing business and society. And so what do we mean by visual technologies? And obviously, I think I'm preaching to the choir here with this audience, but a majority of the data that our brains analyze is visual. So the majority of data that AI will have to analyze to be successful is all visual. One of our first insights reports, which is downloadable for free on our website, we estimate how many cameras are going to be in the world by 2022. Not including logistics and healthcare. You know, the goal here is not just how many cameras, but how much visual data. From Kristen's presentation to many others today and throughout the conference, it's all about how we can understand the signals to the noise in this data and hopefully solve big problems. So we define visual technology as any technology that captures, analyzes, filters, displays, distributes visual data. The fund started in 2012. We invest very early in North America and Europe, and we have a bunch of other initiatives like Matt mentioned, our Vision Summit community and research. Well, what sectors are we talking about? It really is a horizontal layer across everything from agriculture to medical imaging to content synthetic media to logistics to autonomous vehicles. And of course, the visual data is for AR, VR, thermal, medical imaging, satellite imaging, photos and video, but it goes much, much beyond that. So a little context, my background, I was a professional photographer, photo agent, photo buyer, built 4 visual technology businesses, of which some succeeded and some failed. We love helping entrepreneurs and technologists avoid the mistakes that we did. We've got a fantastic team that I won't go into detail. I'm sure you recognize many of our experts in residence, from Serge to Andrew, Luke, Gail, and Jan Eric, and a bunch across our expert network. And this is just a small sample of who collaborates with us in our companies. Matt mentioned our annual Vision Summit. Unfortunately, it's been virtual since the pandemic, but hopefully it'll be face-to-face again soon, monthly dinners. And we also build our own software. So what I'm going to talk about today is this most recent LDV Capital Insights report. And these are all other sectors that you can download for free on our website. I always want to mention this. I think it's critical. We've been doing this since the foundation of LDV. Key to have diverse teams and diverse investors and diverse speakers, which is critical to our platform and the success of the businesses that we invest in. One, we invested very early, first money in with Jan Eric and his team at Mapillary that recently sold to Facebook. That's a perfect example of deep technical team where we get involved and help. Uniquely, 100% of our companies have raised follow-on, and that's very unusual for a deep tech early stage fund with these great partners. A couple of the companies you're probably aware of, Clarify, we invested with Matt, and those 2 people on the team in an algorithm, pre-revenue, pre-product. Ezra, medical imaging, proactive scanning for cancer. Autonomous boats, cargo ships, workboats, surveys, they're all using different types of computer vision and cameras. To a chip size LiDAR, which actually will be a big part of AR and VR and headsets. The ability to get LiDAR data from that small size of a chip. AI video in London, so synthetic avatars and synthetic media that was mentioned earlier today. But in the end, what excites me and what our focus is we invest in people. People build businesses, people build revenue, people hire people. So let's talk about the trends. And like I said, we did a report recently where you can download the extensive data for this on our website. We spent about 5 months, talked to 500 people, 40 experts. It's all about the creator economy, which has become a cliche. But as I mentioned earlier, as a photographer, the creative economy has been around for 100 years. It's just getting more digitized and exponentially growing these days with new technologies powered by everybody in this audience. There's an unbelievable shift in what content's being created. And all content, I would say, or most all content, is visual in nature. Even text-based fonts is visual in nature. We believe there's going to be 100x. If you think there's a lot of content created today, you haven't seen anything yet. There'll be another 100x of content created in the next 5 years. Okay, what are the 3 different kind of categories that we look at LDV Capital? Obviously, it's the actual content. It's the tools and the automation, which is one of the largest growth opportunities, and the monetization, which might include NFTs and new gaming subscriptions, et cetera. But really, it's the tools and the different type of content in our mind. At the end of the day, it's critical to have the best quality, the most contextually relevant, and then the most amount published on a regular basis. And I think one without the other two has zero value. And this is definitely a topic of conversation that many people have. Some people say that exponential amount of content is better than quality. But really what I say about quality, it's in the eye of the beholder. I might think something is fantastic and somebody else thinks it's crap. Excuse my French, but it's all about what's the right content that's contextually relevant for the right audience at the right time. And key to that is, how do we automate the tools? And I believe that maybe Photoshop and other well-known tools will be regulated to the sidelines as new technologies, new tools are automated by the people in this audience. And those are the type of initiatives that we look forward to hearing about from you. There's been a couple of sessions about synthetic media. It's going to be ubiquitous. It's not just going to be an edge case. It's going to be everywhere, and we're not going to know what is synthetic content and what is not. Obviously, GANs in this audience is something that's very well known, but it's going to go beyond just building, drawing a mountain and having a mountain appear. It's going to be full scene. In the next 10 years, it'll be Netflix, or it'll be entertainment, or it'll be virtual experiences like this workshop will be more and more synthetic and delivered by GANs. And actually, I'm not worried if some of my work is replaced by GANs, because I can't wait to focus more on the creative aspects rather than the monotonous parts of my job and or others people's jobs. Another sector, live streaming, maybe this is obvious, but it's not just video conferencing or entertainment. It's shopping, it's cooking, it's concerts, it's layers of technology, of overlays, sentiment analysis, pose estimation, photogrammetry, and more that aren't even listed on here. That space is very exciting because if you go back and combine the quality, the context, and the quantity with this topic, it's very hard to do well. Obviously, the kind of video production world, Synthesia, one of our investments, is exponentially growing in that space. And then you've got the big entertainment studios doing more and more synthetic creation. Soon, I believe there'll be, Pixar quality animation on our mobile phones. And you're not going to need a huge entertainment facility to be able to churn out, enable any kid or any adult to create the next fantastic entertainment from Hollywood. Another big piece of growth opportunities, obviously, is mocap and the kind of creation of content in 3D and 4D. And there's been several sessions talking about that here. What gets really exciting is the upper right green, dark green circle here. The low cost and very fast, high fidelity opportunities that will start with low fidelity, but over time will be high fidelity. Gaming. I'm not a big gamer these days. I'm a little old school and used to go to the arcades and play, Asteroids and Donkey Kong, but gaming is exponentially growing even more than OTT video, music, and film. And just think about all the layers of unique visual tech that this group will be able to build for AR, for VR, or just entertainment. And it's all going to be gamified. This is another sector which kind of ties back to the mocaps and other synthetic GANs. You know, humans, when you go to a board meeting, dinner with your friends, or lunch with your parents, you might have a little bit of different personalities and you might not admit it. You might wear different clothes depending on it. But we're all going to have multiple identities and virtual beings of ourselves that either are realistic or fantastical. And the expectation is each will have at least 3, if not more, in the coming years. So who's going to build that technology that will enable that is something that we want to learn more about and hear about. Obviously, Mika at Magic Leap is no longer in existence. However, this is an early stage of virtual beings, and there's many, many more getting published and being created. Oh, there we go. Oops, sorry. There we go. A couple more slides. Content and curation. You know, with all this data and all this content being created, we don't want to see it all. It's overwhelming. So there's going to be a lot of curation and data-driven publication that hopefully will segment and deliver the contextually relevant content to each of us. Authentication is very important because what's real and what's not. We know if synthetic media is going to exponentially grow, there's going to be a certain need for certain type of content to be validated or not. How can we do this in a realistic way for the right people at the right time? Another thing, you know, moderation of what is inappropriate content historically has been done by humans, but over time, AI will deliver most of that automation. And the key is, how is that going to be accurate for the different situations? Metaverse, a couple slides in the metaverse, it's still early days, but the creation of virtual presentation, you know, participation is going to be key. Many people have different definitions, but in general, a very broad interactive virtual space is how we define it. And our belief, even though it might be biased, but very true, it's all powered by visual tech. An interactive virtual space will not exist without visual technologies and the people in this audience building next generation technology. The key there, back to our digital selves, it'll be, you know, kind of, as I said earlier, these digital beings. Will it be realistic or fantastical? Obviously, hardware is catching up, but it's still, you know, not delivering on the hype cycles that we've seen. And hopefully it will soon as a mass adoption. And that's going to, when that happens, that's going to exponentially drive the rest of the initiatives that we talked about earlier in this session. Fashion, you know, new whole products will exist. Our digital beings are going to need shoes and clothing. But how does it wear? How do we get it? Where do we buy it? Who creates it? And then obviously, we don't think it's going to be replicated in the physical world. There'll be aspects of hybrid realism and virtual and fantastical, but we believe there's mostly going to be a lot more new experiences, whether or not it's a new putt-putt golf or learning about the universe, or obviously Travis Scott concerts in Fortnite are proving to have huge audiences delivering significant value to the artists and to the platforms. The foundations, as we heard earlier from Unity and others, I mean, that is the foundation of the metaverse. And those are just a couple high level kind of trends, of which some might be obvious and some might be new, but feel free to download our in-depth report and email us any questions that you have. And obviously it's about you who are solving these big problems with unique tech. And it's never too early to reach out to us, as we typically invest in people pre-product and pre-revenue, and happy to brainstorm, you know, a year in advance before starting a business. I always say carpe diem. Here's an example of my black and white photography created with a Nikon F and actually in the darkroom. So that's my foundation for this. It's not just some new thesis. It's back from my first camera I got at 13 years old. Thank you very much. Happy to, you know, excited to jump into our panel discussion. There's our website and an email address for me as well. Hopefully, I think I'm within time. Yes. If there's any questions or QA, hope I didn't talk too quickly, but happy to answer any questions anybody might have.